exercise, but maybe not for the workshop about making time for exercise. Okay, well, I think I know most everybody here, but if you don't know who I am, I'm Rebecca, the Wellness Coordinator. What you may not know about me is that I not only work for Hilltop part-time, but I also work as a personal trainer and group exercise instructor for Crossroads, and I've been doing that, not for Crossroads, but in the industry for over 18 years. And I know you're thinking, she's too young, she can't have had a career that long. And that's like my second career. I was a marketing analyst where I sat in a cubicle and did a lot of research for a software company, and I realized pretty quickly that was not my thing. I like to be up and moving. So, we're going to move right along. So, for a little perspective today, start with a little cartoon. Have you seen this before? What fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? So, that's of course an overstatement, but it does get you thinking. Is it worth it to invest a little bit of time in your health now to avoid disease or possibly even death if you can just invest a little bit of time? And we kind of joke about, you know, if you don't exercise, you might die. But death isn't even necessarily the worst thing. About 7 years ago, my dad was only 63, 64. And, he and I were having a conversation where I was doing my usual nagging, Dad, you need to start exercising more, you were doing great, what happened? I was talking to both of my parents, and my dad is, you know, he was doing okay, but then life just kind of got in the way. And so he said, well, if I die now, it's okay. I've lived a good life. Dad, death isn't always the worst thing. You could have a heart attack, you could have a stroke, and then where will you be? Well, little did I know, a week to the day later, my dad would have a stroke. And he lost his ability to speak, and he lost his entire right side, so he's totally paralyzed on his right side. And he never did regain that. So he still, to this day, understands, you know, what we say, but in order to do anything, he needs a lot of help, and we do a lot of the guessing game. And so if he needs something, he's do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and points and repeats the same syllable. And I know it's so frustrating for him. It's like being stuck in this body that no longer does what he wants it to do. And if he could speak, he would tell you that was the thing he dreaded the most, is not having control of his body. So, if there's something that we could do that might help decrease that risk, oh my gosh, wouldn't we do it? Some of us do it. Some of us want to do it. Woo! We have, you got to cheat. You got to see everything else I'm going to talk about. Come on, go. Okay, so we have 23 and a half hours for everything else in our day. And all we're talking about is this little tiny bit of your day that could maybe go toward that one thing that might help you prevent having happen what happened to my dad, or might prevent disease, or might prevent a lot of different things. And I'm going to share a little video with you that I think you'll find very informative about this very thing, about the power of using just 30 minutes a day to benefit our bodies.
Hi, Dr. Mike Evans, and welcome to this visual lecture I'm calling 23 and a half hours. So I have a big interest in preventive medicine, you know, which can mean a lot of things from, you know, cancer screening to eating more fiber to having a good social network, and I mean that in the old sense of the word. Weighing less, drinking less, smoking less, controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. So all these things are incredibly important, and I wouldn't want you to minimize your efforts in any one category, but I want to know what comes first. What has the biggest impact? What is the biggest return on investment? What makes the biggest difference to your health? So I did my research, and I found an answer, at least for me, and it's tricky because, you know, all these things are sort of overlapping. But I picked up this intervention, and because of its breadth, it worked for so many different health problems, and that's what I found so cool about it. So just to kind of walk you through a quick list, so this intervention in patients with knee arthritis who receive 1 hour of treatment 3 times a week reduced their rates of pain and disability by 47%. In older patients, it reduced progression to dementia and Alzheimer's by around 50%. For patients at high risk of diabetes and coupled with other lifestyle interventions, it reduced progression to frank diabetes by 58%. Postmenopausal woman who had 4 hours a week of the treatment had a 41% reduction in the risk of hip fracture. It reduced anxiety by 48% in a big meta-analysis. Patients suffering from depression, 30% were relieved with low dose, and that bumped to 47% as we increased the dose. Following over 10,000 Harvard alumni for over 12 years, those that had the intervention had a 23% lower risk of death than those who didn't get the treatment. It's the #1 treatment of fatigue, and of course, the kind of outcome of choice, or my favorite outcome, is quality of life, which is really all of the above, and really about making your life better. And this treatment has been shown over and over again to improve quality of life. So the question is, what's the medicine, and what is 23.5 hours? So the medicine was exercise, mostly walking, so not triathlons. And let me just put it a different way. I think what I'm asking you to do is, if you think about your typical day, so there's 24 hours, and so you might spend most of your day, this varies obviously, but couch surfing, sitting at work, obviously sleeping. And what the evidence that I'm going to show you kind of tells me is the best thing you can do for your health is to spend half an hour being active, maybe an hour, and that if you can do that, you can realize all the benefits I described in the previous slide. So let's just take a quick walk through some of the literature. So Stephen Blair, he's a professor at the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina, and he looked at this in what's called the Aerobic Center Longitudinal Study, which followed over 50,000 men and women over time. And along the left side of this graph is something called attributable fractions, which is kind of fancy word, but it's the estimate of the number of deaths in a population that would have been avoided if that specific risk factor had been erased. So for example, turning a smoker into a non-smoker, or a couch potato into a daily walker. And along the bottom is the typical risk factors. You can see the hypertension is incredibly important, and so on and so forth. But the one that kind of applied the most risk was this sort of mysterious CRF, which is cardiorespiratory fitness, which is really low fitness. So low fitness was the strongest predictor of death. And this is important that most of the trials we see, to be honest, are funded by pharma or other companies because they've got a drug for hypertension or high cholesterol or diabetes, and we rarely see fitness thrown into the mix, and so it's nice to see a trial that's not so siloed. Blair's work is interesting. He also did another trial looking at obesity. What he found was, sort of two things. One is obesity and no exercise. That's a very bad combination, and that's where we saw many of the negative consequences of obesity from a health point of view. But if the obese person was active, even if they didn't have the weight loss, but were just active and obese, that was much, much better, and that the exercise ameliorated much of the negative consequences of obesity. So if exercise is a medicine, what's a dose? So when I think of dose, I think of how long, how often, and how intense. I'm going to give you a slightly mixed message, but essentially more activity is better. But I must say the rate of return seems to decline after 20 or 30 minutes a day. So if you're being active less than 150 minutes a week, or more if you're a kid, an hour a day if you're a kid, my flag goes up in the clinic. So my personal take on this is that the literature draws a very broad brush, and so we see big differences when somebody goes from not doing anything to doing something, and after that the return is more granular. So if we took the Nurses' Health Study, women who went from zero activity to just 1 hour a week reduced their heart disease rates by almost half. So you can break it down, so it can be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes if you want to do 30 minutes of exercise, so it can be broken into 3. Higher intensity, it looks like it's equivalent to less time with lower intensity. But I think obviously the clinical pearl is mostly thinking about your style and habits and your personal cues. So if you're only going to do it if it's pre-booked with friends, I have couples that take a half-hour walk every morning or evening to organize their life. A dog is a great walking coach. The data showing 67% of dog walkers achieved 150 minutes a week just with the dog walking. And finally, of course, your commute, getting off stop early, taking the stairs, and so on and so forth. So thinking about that, I'm just going to walk you through some quick slices of the literature. The first one comes from Japan. In the 90s, Japan required all employers to conduct annual health screenings for their employees. And so a large gas company in Japan called Osaka used this to answer a great question. So if people's walk to work was longer, did that reduce their chance of serious health problems? So in this example, high blood pressure. And what they found is under 10-minute walk, no difference. 11 to 20-minute walk, 12% reduction in rates of high blood pressure or hypertension. And over 21-minute walk, a 29% decrease in rates of high blood pressure. So the authors calculated that for every increase of 10 minutes in your walk to work, there was a 12% reduction in the likelihood of getting high blood pressure. The second exhibit is looking at stents. So this is something we commonly do down medicine. So you can see on the left here, the artery is blocked. On the right, a vascular surgeon's gone in and put in a balloon, opened it up, and left a stent to keep it open, which makes great sense. So a German researcher named Rainer Hambrecht looked at this with about 100 cardiac patients. He got half the group to exercise, and by that I mean 20 minutes a day on an exercise bicycle, and then once weekly 60-minute aerobics class. And the other half got the high-tech stent and just their sort of normal activity. And after 1 year, 88% of the exercises were event-free compared to 70% of the people that got a stent. So both worked, but I find it sort of incredible that the low-tech made a bigger difference. And you have to remember that the stent just fixes one part of the heart. The next way to think about it is the reverse. So what I call sitting disease. We know that being sedentary is bad for your health, but a researcher named Leonard Veerman wanted to quantify this, and he did so down in Australia in a big study they did there. They found, compared with persons who watch no TV, those who spend a lifetime average of 6 hours a day watching TV can expect to live about 5 years left. I mean, that's incredible. But then I think, who watches 6 hours a day of TV? It turns out the average adult in the USA spends about 5 hours a day watching TV or screens. So I find this fascinating that we never think of the TV as something that's bad for our health, but clearly it's as powerful as many other risk factors for chronic disease. So I'm just going to leave you with, I guess, two quotes. So one is Jerry Garcia, the singer who was the lead singer for the Grateful Dead, and he says, somebody has to do something. It's just incredibly pathetic that it has to be us. And I think that's true, that in some ways it has to be us. As Hippocrates said, walking is man's best medicine. And so I'm going to finish by asking you a question. And this may have some personal challenges for you. So, you might be very busy with work or kids or both, and you may be in pain or have other priorities. But my question to you is, can you limit your sitting and sleeping to just 23 and a half hours a day? So something to think about. Thank you very much.
Okay, so did we maybe learn something there? I did. There's a few things there I didn't really know. Nope, back here. Come on. Okay, I am not the techie. All right. So I think that most of us know we need to stay active. And if you didn't know that, you watched this short video and now you're convinced, right? So we should be done. You know you should exercise. You probably even know how. And so really there's not much more to say. So why do I have more to say? Because it's really hard to go from what we know we should do to what we actually do. And there are some steps that I think help us make those changes. But first, let's start by getting up and exercising right now. So let's take a little break. You knew we were going to sit for a whole 45 minutes in a class about exercise. So if you can and you're able, stand up. And we are going to do 20 squats. So you want to make sure that your feet are flat on the floor and you're just sitting back as if you're going to tap your backside on a chair. And you're going to count with me, right? Here we go. Ready? 1, 2. Good. If this bothers your knees, keep counting, Steve. You don't have to sit as low, right? You can modify, but you're still moving. Abs are pulled in tight, right? Hold in. How many? 10. Good. 11. Are you still sore, Mike? How many? 16, 17, 18. We're almost there. Come on, 19. And there you go. worked the front of our legs, the back of our legs, and our booties. So that wasn't so bad. That took us 20 seconds, right? And we did a whole set of something really good for ourselves.
You noticed?
Okay, so I'm catching my breath. So steps to making your changes. And I think this applies to anything that you feel you want to change in your life. It first starts with challenging your beliefs. And that's really just a way to say, if you hold on to a belief, have you stopped to question it? All right? Make yourself a priority. So if you're needing to make a change in your own life, you got to put your life on the list of priorities, right? And then being creative. Sometimes the solutions aren't visible right away. And so sometimes it takes thinking a little differently to arrive at a way to make the change. So we're going to start with the first one, challenging your beliefs. So beliefs kind of happen and occur from different things, but usually they start with some type of an experience that you've had. So you have that experience in life, and then, thought bubble, you have a thought about that experience. And then somehow that thought gets translated in your mind to being something valid. So now all of a sudden, that thought's not just a thought living in your own head, but now it's become truth. And then we spend an awful lot of time through our lives going around collecting evidence to support what we believe is true, right? So you can see, especially if it's a belief you've held on for a really, really long time, that number one, you may not even realize how deeply rooted it is. And number two, you may not even stop to think to question it, because it's just true, right? But I think that powerful things can happen in your life if you just start to challenge some of those beliefs that we hold. And I think we develop a lot of beliefs about exercise. So we're going to challenge some of those beliefs today. So here's a list of a few that I think some of us have. I don't have enough time. That's really just a belief. That's not necessarily reality, because there's an interesting thing about people who exercise and people who don't. And they both have 24 hours in their day. It's just a matter of their priorities, and we'll talk about that later. So that's a belief that we can challenge. So maybe we take that thought, I don't have time, and we say, but maybe I do have time. Maybe there is a way. Maybe I can make time. All right, exercise is boring. Does anybody have that belief? Oh, good, you all love exercise. Yay! I don't always love exercise. That may come as a shock. I really don't. Sometimes I have to do a lot of self-talk to get myself to do it. But I do try to find things that I enjoy. And so maybe if you think exercise is boring, maybe it's just a matter of saying, maybe it doesn't have to be boring. Maybe what I'm doing right now is boring. Or maybe what I currently think is exercise is boring. But maybe there's something out there that I haven't even thought of yet that wouldn't be boring for me. All right, whose life is hectic? Yeah, mine too. And it's been worse. I've had really hectic times in my life. But maybe we can stop and say, yeah, life is too hectic right now, and I need a way to better manage it. And possibly, exercise could help us do that. Exercise is an amazing stress reliever. All right, so what if you just plain don't like exercise? Does that apply to anybody here? Yeah, that's a tough one, especially if you've really convinced yourself that's who you are. Maybe you've even preached it. I do not exercise. I don't like exercise. And then you wouldn't want to be caught exercising, right? But maybe, just maybe, there's a little hidden athlete inside there that's just waiting to come out, or maybe a hidden dancer that's yet to spread her wings. So I don't know. You could challenge that belief and maybe find something you like to do. I'm too old. Do we get to a point in our lives where we're too old to exercise?
Never.
No, and Steve gets to see people that are very aged exercising, right? And they do a great job, some of them, huh? Tell us about Audrey.
She's 96, does not use a walker unless she feels out of balance that day, and she comes 3 days a week with a cheerful attitude, and I think that's part of it. Her attitude is
That is
what
part
gets
of
her
it.
up and gets her to the fitness room.
Yeah.
Because of you, because of the
Because-
exercise. Now, she takes the stairs all the time.
Aw, see?
Amazing.
one thing led to another thing, and she's benefiting because of that. And I always like to talk about my 78-year-old client, George, who he was in his 50s when he had triple bypass surgery twice. And he was a smoker, and he was overweight, and he decided, I don't need to live this way. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of people start getting in their 50s, 60s, and think, well, this is just me, it's just who I am. Luckily for George, he didn't do that, and he decided to make changes in his life. And he's amazing. I would put him up against any 30, 40-year-old any day. In fact, I have. And he can hold a plank for 4 minutes. And the best I got out of my younger clients was 2.5 minutes. So I am telling you, this man is amazing. He's still hiking. And he had a cardiac event in my class one time. And he even managed to get through that and be okay. And he's, I don't know, he's still hiking all over the world. He's amazing. So you're not too old. And can you imagine being 78 and still being able to do all the things you love to do? Just because you invested a little bit of time, you're not too old. I'm too out of shape. Yeah. Maybe because you held on to this belief for so long. But that's okay. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to say, I got to run a marathon. And if I can't do it, then what's the point? You know what? Just start small. Tell yourself, give yourself permission to take a 5-minute walk. If you can't walk because your knees hurt like my mom, just start doing some stuff in a chair, seated. I don't care what it is, but just start doing it. And then just like Audrey, you start doing one thing, and then that builds on itself, and you realize how good it feels. The cost doesn't outweigh the benefit, so maybe you don't see results. And I hear this a lot from clients. If they're not losing weight, like the Biggest Loser, dropping 20 pounds in a week, then they think, well, what is the point? But did you hear that piece in the video? Even if you don't lose weight, if you are exercising, you have done a really good thing for your heart, and you've decreased your risk of heart disease. So maybe it's time to get away from the idea that the scale is the be-all, end-all goal, and just focus on the process. Focus on how good it feels to start moving, and then maybe the results will start to come. I guarantee it's going to be slower than the Biggest Loser because they are working out 6 hours a day. And you know, even though I'm saying we have time to exercise, I don't have time to exercise 6 hours a day, and I doubt you do either. Do we have any other beliefs? Anything else you can think of? Besides the ones I came up with? Come on, come on.
Gyms are germy.
Gyms are germy. Ugh. So, does exercise only happen in a gym? Is that the only place? I'm pretty sure that people were physically active before there were gyms. Just a hunch. So there's lots of things that we can do just in our everyday lives, outside, enjoying the great outdoors to stay busy. So that's a really good point. Somebody from the earlier class said, I'm just too tired. And that can be a real feeling. But what's interesting about our capacity as human beings is we can actually do a lot more than we think we can do. And sometimes when we're really tired after work, it's not because we're really exhausted and spent physically. Maybe we're just drained emotionally. Maybe we're just kind of achy and stressed. But exercise can help with all of that. And if you always remember that movement begets more movement, you can think about how to maybe adjust your day, if you sit a lot, to where you're in the mode of moving rather than in the mode of sitting. When you're sitting, who has seated jobs, primarily sitting in, who has walking around, moving around most of the day jobs? You're the lucky ones. You really are. Our bodies are not made to sit. And every time you sit for a prolonged period of time, I want you to get an image of yourself just like wilting and slowly dying in your chair, because that's what's happening. But you can combat that, you can mitigate that a little bit by just getting up and moving around. I have much more energy at the end of the day on the days where I have been doing more personal training and I'm on my feet for 12, sometimes 14 hours a day, than when I'm sitting at my desk. It's helped, though, to get a ball to sit on, and so that's what I sit on, and that's what Greg Ann's going to get, because Angie's going to get her a ball, too, because that just helps us stay moving a little bit while we're sitting there. But we just want to get away from some of those beliefs that we're holding, start to call them into question, reframe them in our minds. I don't have time to exercise? What if I do have time to exercise? And that opens up all the possibilities. Oh, it's time to do an exercise break, so you don't have to get out of your chair. Stay in your chair. We're going to work upper body this time.
Got a new belief.
So-
Feet are too cheery.
Okay, so, does everybody have arms on their chairs? All right, so you're going to lift up through your torso so you're nice and tall. Place your hands on your handles and push your elbows behind you slightly and just press yourself up off the chair. Now we're going to do that 20 times. Here we go. 1, 2, and you're breathing. 3, counting. 4, 5, how many? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is my group exercise. Structure, personality. How many? 15. 16, 17. Are you starting to feel it? 18, 19. Woo! How? What did you feel? What did you work? Triceps. We got some shoulder, even a little chest. Okay, we've now worked lower body and upper body strength training in 40 seconds. That took 40 seconds of your day. Could you multiply that by 2 or 3 maybe throughout your day, and you'll have worked the body in a pretty darn good way. I think we could do that. All right, so the second step in making a change is to make yourself a priority. Has anybody seen the movie The Holiday? Do you like that? I kind of like that movie. So there's a scene in the movie that has stuck with me ever since I saw it the first time. The second time, the third time, the fourth time. Where Kate Winslet's character, her name is Iris, and she's sitting down at dinner with Albert. He's an elderly screenwriter, a renowned screenwriter, and she's just kind of explaining to him why she had to run away from her life because things just weren't going how she wanted them to go. And he says, Iris, in the movies we have leading ladies and we have the best friend. You, I can tell, are a leading lady, but for some reason you're behaving like the best friend. And so then Iris says, you're so right. You're supposed to be the leading lady of your own life, for God's sake. Arthur, I've been going to a therapist for 3 years, and she's never explained anything to me that well. So, are you the leading lady or the leading man in your own life, or are you just, do you feel sometimes like you're just tagging along on everybody else's life? I think that happens a lot when you get busy with work, you get busy with family, if you've got kids, if you've got obligations at all, and if you care about other people, which of course at Hilltop we do. That's what we do. We care about other people. So how do we do that and not lose focus of the fact that you're still it. You're the leading lady or leading man in your own life. And if you're not going to play that role, nobody else is going to play that role. You're the only you. So you got to start taking charge and deciding that how you want your life to go. And so how does that translate to exercise? Well, in your life, what's more important than your health? I mean, really, if you think about it, your health is your life. If your health is compromised like my dad's is, he's not living the life that he wanted to lead. I know he's not. Now, he's still managing to exercise. Guess who makes him? And even though he's paralyzed on half of his body, he's still able to stand. He's learned how to stand and balance and do a lot of things for himself. So even in his condition, exercise has actually played a role in helping him maintain some kind of quality of life. But if you think about it in those terms that your health really is your life, gosh, we got to make it a priority. It's got to be up there, not just somewhere on the list, but like at the top. Because we're no good to our family, our loved ones, the people we serve at Hilltop, unless we're taking care of ourselves. So if we look at that, the exercise improves all these things: metabolism, heart health, muscle strength, mood, sex life, mental alertness, sleep, all of these things. That's a pretty amazing list. And I know that if we were to go to a doctor and say, I need help with all these things, and he gave us a pill, or maybe he even gave us like a treatment we could go do for 30 minutes a day, we'd probably do it. But because it's exercise, it's hard to really convince ourselves sometimes that it really could be just that simple. And there's a law in science, the law of parsimony, where the simplest answer is usually the right answer. And that really is the truth a lot of times in our lives, and especially when we're talking about our health. It's really the simple things that we do. It's not the expensive products. It's not the, there's always some infomercial promising you new things. But there's a reason why there's always something new coming out, because it's really not the answer. The answer is that simple thing that we have heard over and over and over again that we should do. And a big part of that is exercise. So we're convinced we need to exercise, right? And that it's a priority. So let's take an exercise break. So you're going to stay in your chair, and we're going to stretch this time. And if you're participating in the Healthy Hearts Challenge, stretching is on the weekly challenge list coming up here. So again, scooch to the edge of your chair a little bit. There's wheels, so be a little careful. And you want to sit up nice and tall. And I know Steve does this in his classes, but you're going to take your right leg and just straighten it out in front of you and place your heel on the floor. All right, nice and tall. Now, with your hands on your thighs, just bend from your hips with a nice flat back. Oh, what's stretching?
Hamstring.
Hamstrings. And hamstrings tend to get really tight when you're sitting at a desk. So this is a good stretch to stop and do throughout the day. Okay, let's do the same thing on our left so we don't walk around in circles all day. And lean forward. Good. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Oh. No. What is hurting, Jen? She's been sitting too long. We're going to talk about how to remedy that. All right. Let's do a side stretch. So take your right hand up. Take your left hand and grab it with your wrist and just tug and kind of create a C with your right arm. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Nice stretch through your side. And then switch sides. Just gently tug. Nice. And then shake it out. Chin goes to your chest, flexing forward with your neck. And then roll your head so your right ear is hovering right over your right shoulder. Do you store tension there in your shoulders? Yep. A lot of us do. And then other side. If you're on the phone or if you're at a computer a lot, or even if that's just where you feel tense. And then back to center. And head comes up. All right. Does you already feel better? Just those few little things. And stretching is part of physical fitness. So that's another thing that you can do. And so we've done lower body strengthening, upper body strengthening, and we've done some stretching in all about 1 minute. You could repeat that a few times throughout your day, and that will not take very much time, but it just might make you feel really good. All right, so our last thing in order to create a change, sometimes we have to be creative. So maybe the 30-minute walk every day just is not going to happen for you. So what can we do? Let's not focus on what we can't do. Let's figure out what we can do. So one of the things that I suggest is just make it your routine. Who in here brushes their teeth every day? Really relieved to hear that. Do you ever stop and go, do I want to brush my teeth today? I don't think I want to brush my teeth today. No, we just do it. We do it. We don't think about it. Do you have to stop and think about eating? No, you just do it. You do it because your body needs the nourishment. And I really think that physical movement, maybe you don't even like the word exercise. If you hate the word exercise, don't use that word. Physical activity or just any kind of movement, that needs to become part of our daily routine. Our bodies are designed to move. They are not designed to sit. Sitting, like I said, is just a slow death. So we want to move. So figure out where it can maybe fit to the point where you don't have to think about it every day. Making appointments with yourself. I find that this is highly effective, even for myself. I honestly would not exercise every day if I didn't write it in at the beginning of the week when I'm going to do it and what I'm going to do. In fact, I haven't worked out yet today. But because I wrote it down when I'm going to do it, normally I don't exercise in the afternoon and I'm going to hate it and I don't want to do it. But I'm going to go do it because I wrote it in and I'm going to keep that appointment with myself. If the President of the United States was coming and you had an appointment, would you skip out? Dawn. Probably. Okay, maybe the Queen of England. Let's get away from politics. You probably wouldn't skip out on that. But in our lives, again, if you are the leading lady or the leading man in your own life, you are the most important person. Even, dare I say, more important than the president or anybody else. You're the most important. So keeping those appointments with yourself shows respect to yourself, and that's important. Writing a plan, so if you have it written down, chances are you're going to do it. I know I'm going to do it today because I wrote it down. Sometimes keeping a diary and tracking minutes is helpful, so if you're doing the Healthy Hearts Challenge, you're doing that already. But it's like a nice little positive reinforcement, right? To see how many minutes you've accumulated at the end of the week. And if you don't like the good old-fashioned diary or tracking, there's so many technological apps and things you can do. I don't know, do you guys know of some that have worked for you? In either recording your exercise or little alarms to remind you to get up and move? Wow, Google.
That's why we're here.
That's why you're here. For some people, it's helpful if they join a gym or a group. This works for some, not for others, but if you're spending a little bit of money each month, then there's something that happens in your brain where you go, I better go at least 8 times to make it worth it. If I only go once, that's a really expensive workout. That helps for some people, not for everybody. But in general, even if you tend to be a little bit of a solo person, for exercise, we tend to work harder, we tend to commit, and we tend to show up if we're working out in a group. There's fitness videos. Has anybody had success with fitness videos? I think John has, right? With the, like P90X and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you like just being able to do it at home? And
Yeah, it's really nice because I can work out in whatever I want to wear. And usually what I do is I start like a healthy dinner before the workout video, like put the chicken in the oven, and then by the time the workout's done, my dinner's ready.
That's awesome. So that would have been time just kind of waiting for dinner anyway.
Yeah.
And you're maximizing your time by doing it then. That's awesome. So that works for some people, but John's pretty self-motivated to be doing that by himself at home, isn't he? So good job, John. So having a workout partner sometimes can help with that. Even if it's not a regular workout partner, maybe it's just somebody you ask to go on a walk with you that week or whatever, but you'll have that extra accountability if somebody's waiting for you. If you're an all or nothing kind of person, but you just don't have time to do all, try to break that all or nothing mentality. Those mini workouts throughout the day, they work. They really do, especially for just basic heart health. Now, if you're trying to lose a lot of weight, it may be a little bit more difficult because you're not sustaining that heart rate for a long time. But for overall health benefits, those mini workouts are awesome. So, I mean, we take breaks. I see people talking and catching up, or we have meetings and things that we could maybe try doing while we're walking around the building. Trying to squeeze in little ones is a great way to do it. I often have to resort to this one, and it's not my preferred method, but if I know my day is crazy, I'll try to squeeze in 3 or 4 15-minute bouts in between clients or in between things, and then lo and behold, at the end of the day, I've done what I need to do, and I'm really happy that I did it. All right, making family time active time. So if your family time tends to be more sitting around the TV or playing video games or leisurely dinners, maybe start thinking about ways that you can enjoy each other's company and be active instead. So, when was it I saw you hiking with Rachel and Mike? We were out hiking. When was that? It was one of the holidays. After Thanksgiving. Yeah. So, their family went out, took a hike. Our family went out, took a hike. That can be great time together, I think. Even more so than sitting around stuffing food in your face, because it opens the opportunity for all these other fun experiences when you're active together. Instead of lunch dates, maybe think about setting walking dates or rock wall climbing dates or whatever it is. I don't set very many lunch dates anymore, so my friends know if if we want to hang out and just catch up, that we will go to the park and walk around. And I'm not even using that for exercise. I just know it makes me feel better, and it's a better time. It's just a better time with my friend than sitting and eating. Any other ideas? What have you done that's worked for you? What have you wanted to try that you don't know if it's going to work? Anything? John?
I love to watch TV more than anything in the world, but now I have a treadmill in my garage, so I put my iPad on the treadmill and then like watch Netflix while I just walk on the treadmill for like 4 or 5 hours watching TV. And I do my homework also, like for the reading section. I'll put the book on the treadmill, I'll just walk on the treadmill and read.
That is awesome. No, I discovered that too. I kind of lost my workout partner, but I'm kind of glad I did in some ways, because I discovered that on the step mill, it's like going up a down escalator, and boy, it gets you sweating. I can read, and I can even work. I prepared this entire presentation except for doing the PowerPoint, which I threw together in about 15 minutes before I did the first one, while I was on the step mill, just to show you it can be done. So I just took my notebook and I watched that video and I did some of my research on my iPhone, and yeah, I did it all while I was moving. So I got a good couple hours in just preparing this workshop. Maybe that doesn't work in your job, but there are always things that you can do. Anything else? Any other ideas?
Maybe that's something last time lesson.
What's that? A step mill. I would love it, Mike, if we're doing capital requests, that all of our desks be replaced with treadmill desks.
All right. Get on that.
But really, just even getting up and moving at your desk. I mean, you can even get like those little peddlers. You can just get them like at Kmart. Yeah. So all it is, it's just like bike pedals. You could put them under your desk. Nobody would even know you're doing it. And there's your bicycle desk. And you're moving a little bit. I mean, really. If you can't get it in, that's the way to sneak it in. Did you have a comment?
I did. I started doing like my push-ups and squats at my desk while I'm reading emails.
That's great.
Or like I have hand weight things, you know, and people at the Latimer House just walk into my office and they're like, Jennifer, are you okay? And I'm like, yep, I'm good. I'm good back here doing my
That's
push-ups.
awesome. I
Because
envision
I
a
need to
day.
work while
Yeah.
I do it. So.
I envision a day when at Hilltop that is not an abnormal thing to see. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, Steve doing his push-ups. Jen doing her squats. That's great. We can change the way we think of doing our tasks at work. Like I said, if you're up and around, you're lucky. You might want to get pedometers, or sometimes the smartphones have apps for your, like for pedometers, and just track to see how much you're doing. Because that's kind of a reward in and of itself to get to the end of the day and go, wow, I walked 12,000 steps. That would be considered good. So doing those types of things kind of help keep you motivated too. If you are a techie person, there's like the Body Bug, there's little things now you can buy that sort of keep track of your movement, keep track of your steps, and so that's that little positive reinforcement at the end of the day that, gosh, I did something today. So breaking out of the idea of what exercise has to be, maybe even tossing out the term exercise and just thinking of it as being physically active like our bodies are designed to be, and not sitting as much, we just may totally change the course of our health to one of good wellness. And we're going to be better for it, and we're going to feel better for it, I guarantee you.